Greetings, everyone. Thank you for coming to Zoom Basics. In this quick session, I'm going to be showing you how to add Zoom to your course, how to go over some of the settings you'll have on your profile, and a couple other things as we go along. So to start, first again, thank you everyone for showing up. I'm going to add this into my e-class course right now in a sample built course. So what I'll do is I'll first share my screen, turn editing on, click add activity or resource, external tool. I'll add it as Zoom classes. You can name it whichever you want. You can put your own spin on it. From the drop-down menu, you'll see Zoom. If you want to give any details about the link, you can click Show More and add any details you wish. Maybe meetings will take place Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 3:10. You can put that on your course page as well. So I'm going to save and return to course. I'm going to show you exactly why in a moment. If I don't turn editing off, it adds a block and it makes it so you only see a chunk of the screen. So you can see I have a few scheduled meetings already. I'm going to click schedule a new meeting. The students will only see the name that is changed here. They will not be able to see any of the description. So I'm just going to keep it as the title of the course for right now. If you want something more description, if you didn't add anything in the details for the description, you could put in Monday, Wednesday, Friday class link, just to denote it as something different than putting in your office hours, which I can also show you momentarily. If you're teaching online for the entire semester or just the first 2 weeks, either way, the idea here is you would pick the first day of the semester. That's the first day of the traditional semester. I believe up here I decided it was a 110 course. 110 is not an option until you type it in. You can type 1:10. If you don't put the colon in, it'll get confused and it'll just not give you a time to select down here. Change AM to PM. The duration is a suggested time, and it won't kick you out after that amount of time. I'm going to select reoccurring meeting, change daily to weekly, and change it to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Here, if you are teaching for 2 weeks online, we can go and choose the 12th. You don't want to choose the last day, as it sometimes does not give you that meeting for that day, because it's meant to end that day. But you'll see up here, there are 6 occurrences. It's going to create 2 weeklies for those each. You do not need to check off required registration. The password is defaulted to be on, and the students do not need to see the password to join the meeting. The waiting room is also defaulted to be on just for extra security measures. The rest of the settings are pretty standard. If you want host videos and participant videos to start when they join the meeting, you can have that option. Usually we leave that off. The only authenticated users would force users to be signed in. I don't suggest keeping that on, as some students, it would hinder them getting into the class occasionally. The audio, you can have it so they have only the option to call in by telephone, computer audio, or both. I would suggest keeping on both. If you want the students to be able to join the meeting before you can enable join before host. If you've noticed that in other sessions there is a lot of background noise, you can choose mute participants on entry. Teaching online, no matter the duration, it is also highly suggested to record the meeting automatically into the cloud. If you do not see the cloud option, please reach out to IT. This means you do not have a licensed account and you need to have your account increased. Once I save, we will be in the edit screen for this meeting. There's polling options. We can edit this meeting again, which just gives us the same window we were in, or the option to start this meeting immediately. If we scroll back up, if you have a guest speaker, you can copy the meeting invitation and send it to them respectively. I highly suggest not sending this to a student, as it shares the password, and the password in the waiting room is meant to prevent Zoom bombing. By clicking course meetings here, you will be brought back to the list of your course meetings. To start any session, you'll click Start. If you've accidentally created one on a holiday, as in this day right here, you can delete it, and it gives you the option to delete just this occurrence or all of them. To create these for office hours, which regardless of teaching online or not, this might be something that would be beneficial to be able to meet with students, whether you're on campus, whether you're not on campus, and students could be anywhere across the state or the country now. So it's one of those things that it gives you a way to be able to meet with your students. So for this, I'm just going to call this office hours. I'm going to make them for noon. I'm going to just leave it at an hour. I'm going to start at the beginning of the semester. Reoccurring and weekly again. So since I have my fake course running at 1:10, I'll do office hours beforehand if students have questions beforehand. That's just a personal preference in my pretend fake course. End date, since this is going to be office hours you can use throughout the semester, we're going to choose December 11th, since December 10th is the end of the semester. Note that final grades are due by the 21st, so if you did want to do something up until that point where you could still meet with students, you may do so as well. I would not suggest enabling the recording for a personal meeting as such, as this would be more private to you. If the student requests that, you can obviously do that as well and send them a recording privately. All of the recordings that you post here that are set up to be recorded are set that you have to open those permissions. So if there's a recording there, no student will see it until you publish it. So I'm going to save these events. And then if you had recorded a meeting, you'll see the toggle to publish. So if a student did request a personal meeting to be recorded, they'd be able to still get the information here. I just wouldn't publish it to the world of your students. You can just allow them to get the file by downloading it yourself and sharing it to them elsewise. Some of the other settings we're going to go into, since we've all been in Zoom meetings for the most part before, I'm going to share my screen of me sharing my screen. I'm going to create a new share. So once you create new share, it's going to give you options here. If you only have one screen or one monitor, you only see one screen. I have 3 set up, and the screen I want to show you is screen 3. By sharing a screen, you share everything that's going to happen on that screen. So be wary. Don't have open bank statements. Don't have open other student grades. Don't have open your Amazon cart. Make sure the links on your screen are just what you want to be showing for the course. So it's important to just keep some of that minimized or close it out entirely while you're sharing your screen. You can see that I have just different windows here, and I have my PowerPoint. If you select one of these, it'll show only what you show in that program. But if you go to another program during that, the students will still see just the window you had selected. So if you know you're going to be going back and forth between documents or other information, it'll be good to share your screen entirely. So I'm going to share screen 3 and share. And now I can show you the settings within the meeting. And some of the things we'll go over real quickly for everyone is your account profile, some settings with the microphone, video background, security, sharing. We already went over a little bit of the security by having the password enabled and the waiting room. To toggle that, if you did not want the waiting room on, or if students are having a problem getting in during the class, excuse me, you can enable or disable the waiting room. In this case, I enabled it because in this example, my students are all in the course. I've accounted for them. They've all shown up on this list for participants that is located here under participants. There are other options within this participant list. You can see I have behind me another computer set up as a fake participant. We'll call him Chuck Lynch 2.0. Under more, we can chat directly, ask them to start their video, pin them to a specific spot, can make them host, make them co-host. I would not suggest making a student a host. You can make co-host, you can rename their name, you can assign them to be typing closed caption if you have someone who needs closed captions in your course. Allow them to record the meeting locally. This might be something you want to do for a personal meeting. Allow to multi-pin. You can put someone in a waiting room. So say you have an office hour and you accidentally let in 2 students instead of 1. You could just inform one of the students that, thank you both for showing up at the same time. Please let me speak with person X first, and then I'll speak with person Z. So that way that person will get into the waiting room, and you can also message that person as well. If someone is not meant to be there, you can remove them. And if they're very much not supposed to be there, you can report them. You can invite other members if you're doing something where you're inviting a guest speaker and you're already in the meeting. You can mute everybody at once if there's background noise, and also these other settings here. You can ask all to unmute, mute participants on entry, allow participants to unmute themselves, rename themselves, play a sound when it comes in, enable the waiting room, lock the meeting, and merge this into the window here. So you can have this on the same side. You can see here I'm recording, and you can see I have pause and stop recording. Once you click recording, it'll show you the option to change if you want to record to the cloud or to your computer. If you've set it up on your meeting site to record to the cloud automatically, then you don't have to worry about that. It's already recording and you can see it up here. It'll just be a circle within a circle. You'll click on it if you haven't started the recording, or if you've stopped your recording, and it will allow you to start recording for the meeting. So if I pause the recording, it will pause the meeting and keep the continuous stream of one session recorded all together. If you're recording different chunks of a session and maybe you want to do a part 1, part 2, you could stop the recording and then it would start again. For this exact example, I can't show those exact steps as this would break the recording string. Down here at the bottom left, we have mute. You can see this very faintly. You can see the up and down green working. If I click on it, I become muted. If I stop my video by clicking on it, you can't see my video anymore. These little up arrows give you the options to change your mic or your headset or what speakers are coming out. So if you're using a headset like this, it'll give you the mic information there. And if you have different speaker options, it'll allow you to have different speakers over there, behind you, wherever your speakers are. And it gives you options to test those as well. And the same thing is for the video. You can see I have a couple different video cameras working. So those are some of those options where you'll be able to toggle between video feeds. So I have a computer over here with the main camera and then my web camera up here. And that allows me to be able to switch video feeds if I desire. Within security, you can lock the meeting. A lot of these settings were seen in the participants list. You can enable the waiting room, hide profile pictures if someone has posted something you do not desire. You can allow the students to screen share. From here, you do not need to give them co-hosts to do so, but everyone will be allowed to screen share, but only one person at a time. You can turn off the chat entirely. You can allow them to rename or not rename themselves, mute themselves, start their video, annotate on shared content, which allows, I will say for the intermediate session, you can remove a participant and suspend participant activities. In the chat, which is next over here, we can enable the waiting room and all other such here. And that's just the participant list. But under chat, we can see that there has everyone in the waiting room can chat, everyone in the meeting can chat, or you can chat directly. You can change these settings by participant can chat with no one, host and co-hosts, everyone, or everyone and anyone directly. If you know there's a lot of side chatter going on, you can restrict this to just everyone or just to the hosts. And this can also be merged within here as well. And you can see I have Anthony Scardillo here, who is joining me for the rest of this session. I'm going to pause the recording for a moment and allow him to come into the meeting. And to allow someone from your waiting room, you'll see it just like this. You can message that person. So I'll do so right now. And that person will get that direct message to the waiting room. Anyone in the waiting room will see that. To admit him, I'm simply going to click admit and then pause the recording for a moment so we may continue. So I've started the recording again. Mr. Anthony Tony Scardillo is here to join us. Woo! And we have another example of another person coming into the waiting room. We have Louis. I am going to not be able to pronounce that name this early in the morning.
Give it a try.
Leonce?
You got it.
Nice. My watching of American Horror Story and other films from Louisiana based has worked with my French, which I know very little of. Going to admit Louis right now. He's going to come in from the waiting room. You will see him in the joined list. And I'm going to close the chat for the other waiting room there.
Now, I want to talk to you too. That's actually one of the first things, Chuck, that maybe you want to talk about is the use of the waiting room. And do we need to have a waiting room, and why do you use a waiting room?
So some of those reasons that we want to have a waiting room on is that it adds an extra layer of security. So Zoom bombers aren't coming in. They aren't, actually I'm going to stop the screen share. So we stop screen sharing ourselves, talking to ourselves while we're screen sharing. It adds that extra layer of security, and it kind of adds a door. So when you're in a meeting, if you don't have it on, if someone entered the password or entered the join link for the meeting for students, that student is going to go right in. They're just going to walk in your door like it's open. If you are having a meeting and notice that a student wants to talk afterwards or what have you, if you go in and do, where's my screen share button again? I'm just going to screen share our screen sharing. If you do want to turn on the waiting room from the participants list, say at the end of a meeting, and it wasn't on previously, you can click the little three buttons and enable the waiting room or turn it off.
Now, so next question for you,
Sure.
because one of the problems we have as instructors is, so my class starts at 8 a.m. and I have a waiting room set up, and I begin my class promptly at 8 a.m. But little Chuck doesn't roll into the virtual class until 8:03.
He doesn't even have his camera on.
Yeah, I know, really. But the question is, I'm going to be preoccupied giving my lesson.
Mhm.
And I may miss him in the waiting room. So like personally, I select, they just come in as, as they do join.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts about that? And I know security is important, but at the same point, leaving the kid in a waiting room for 5, 10 minutes might
Mhm.
not be a good too. So what are your thoughts about that?
My thoughts on that is kind of a little bit to your own discretion. Um, when a student goes to join your class, they'll do the same steps, and I have a little video you can share. It's all on
Mhm.
our documentation that I made of how a student can join the session. And again, welcome, Lewis. I know we were kind of welcoming you from
Yeah.
afar over there. um, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
As a teacher, you'll go ahead and click start. As a student, they'll see join. The password is baked into the button, so they don't ever need the password. So if you are in a meeting and you do know that your students are being respectful of your time and others and being able to go into the class and there's not an issue of people not showing up that shouldn't be there, which students pretty much now know not to do that, um, that you can turn that off during a meeting if you know there are stragglers. And you can turn it back on during the meeting after everybody's in, maybe a half hour in, for the class, or you can turn it on at the end. Again, just if there's people asking specific questions, that way you can go up and let me grab a new screen share again. If little Chuck here needed to go into the waiting room, I could put him in the waiting room. So then you and I could speak more directly about questions that you didn't want to ask in front of other people.
Oh yeah, that's a nice feature. I like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And if they needed to come back in, if they also had another question, we could admit them again. And then they pop back in.
Yeah. I've never used that function, Chuck. That's really
Mhm.
good. I like that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's neat to be able to have a door and a virtual
Mm,
presence.
yeah.
Um, but let's see, what else do
So
we
it
have on
does.
our
So it
list?
does
Yeah.
become. So it does become kind of your own preference as to whether you do it this way. That is a
Mhm.
nice feature, though. I never thought of that because there have been times when I just want to. And I've used the breakout rooms before, which that works very well too. But
Right.
this is nice as far as an option too.
And we'll do a little of the breakout rooms when we do the 11 a.m.
Right.
session.
Yes, of course.
Um, but it's neat to be able to do it this way, um, to be able to use those settings. Some of the other settings we have in here, you can see I have my background framed to the study in my room. I have, ye old ebooks that, eventually I have a list as long as that I still need to read. Um, the I do have the Harry Potters and stuff on the bottom, which, read years ago. If you know me and my personality, that's not surprising. Um, the some of the other things, like I'll use that as an example. If we click just want to make sure I'm on the right screen share. Perfect. Um, if we click on the up arrow right here above stop video, we can choose a video filter or background. This allows you to go in, choose to blur your background,
Mm,
which then you kind of,
I like
it,
that one.
yeah,
yeah.
it's a good one to use. It kind of makes you a little spacey. You might have to just make sure your headset is tight on your head so you don't get like the weird halo effect. Um, and then you can upload your own. There's a little plus button where you can add another image. I got, standard Miss Frizzle. I put my own face in case I have to go like this for a minute. Um, and there's a whole bunch of backgrounds. I mean, I have, Space Ghost, Coast to Coast.
Oh,
I like the
neat.
Batman one.
That
Yep,
looks like the George
Batman.
Jetson, the old George Jetson setting, but
I think it's still Hanna-Barbera, so it's
oh, yeah,
same
it's probably
creators. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Go
one
ahead.
one note I wanted to say about backgrounds too, Chuck, and that's
Mhm.
really a good point. And
Thank you.
I mean this the right way when I say this, but you
Mhm.
really do have to pay attention to what's in the background of your
Right.
screen. There's been a lot of what's the word I want? Funny videos and funny screenshots that have been posted on social media of people who have stuff in the background that they're not paying attention to.
Right.
There's, some stuff that's in the background that, like, a bong or something like that,
Right.
that
We don't want,
we
we
don't
want
want,
to, not that we think there's going to be a teacher with drug paraphernalia behind
right,
them. But
or
there
any other
is, or any
paraphernalia
other,
behind. Yeah.
any stuff that would be in the background that might be,
Right.
I mean, when you think of a teacher, there's a certain thing you think
No, yes.
of
I,
things
I know,
being in the
like,
background.
personally, at home, my virtual office, if you will, is
Mhm.
set up in my living room. And, I always try to make sure that, everything is picked up and is nice, because I
Mhm.
don't want it to look like,
Of course.
real, and you've got a great background,
Thank you.
personally. It really is kind of nice. It's got some interest to it, but at the same time, it's nothing that's, a little questionable. So,
Right. And anything in my background, I even offered my students at one point if they saw anything, movie references, and I change this around every little bit, every once in a while. So in a way, in a twisted way of trying to get them to pay attention to me speaking, I will change things in my background and ask them, I will give them bonus points if
yeah.
they've found a new movie reference or book reference or something that's just something odd in the background. That, like, I have Star Wars stuff over here. I have my book DVD case over here. So, and you can see I have a lab coat draped over there because I have props. Practical effects are great sometimes. And not just, I'm in space.
Yeah.
Um, so those are, so I try and make things engaging that way. And I mean, I have a dragon and then my grandfather's flag. So I mean, there's,
Yeah.
and
There's
plaques
another
and, yeah.
example, you don't want to have something like, what is it, the rebel, what is the Confederate
Oh yeah,
flag,
the
or,
Confederate. Yeah,
so
that's just,
you
yeah.
just have to take a minute to look at what's on the
Mhm.
screen, and, what's showing. And, you might have like a TV, if you have a television in the background and you've
Mhm.
got, a movie playing or something, all that stuff can be very distracting.
Right. And you can see, I mean, I have this computer on, but I don't have this monitor on. There's three
Right.
screens over here. Um, because my background scroll just has like um just geeky nerdy stuff that I enjoy that doesn't need to be on camera. It's all, just shows that you can find anywhere on the internet on any of the streaming stuff, but they're all, there's like Avatar stuff and like Star Wars and Zelda and Batman, and some of those things are fine, but at the same time it's just like I don't need that distraction scrolling the whole time because then I also see it.
Sure.
Because one of the things that we're doing with Zoom is that we're not just in the classroom with students anymore.
Right.
We're welcoming them into our own homes or our cars if you have to take a meeting in a car, um, or dining rooms. So it's something that's
Hmm.
completely changed that aspect of no longer can someone think that teachers live in the basement of the school because we're literally inviting them into our homes.
Yeah, there's two things there I wanted to just note for you.
Mhm.
The first one, which is you mentioned about the Zoom mobile. Just so everybody knows, that is a
Mhm.
fantastic
Yeah.
feature, but you've got to be very careful with it. What happens is, you're doing this with it,
Hmm.
and, the image, my daughters do this all the time. They walk around with the unit
Yeah.
and they're doing this, and you're going, like that.
Yeah.
So
You'll
that's
get
one
motion
thing you got to
sick.
be careful with
Yeah.
it. The other thing, Chuck, I wanted to get your thoughts about,
Hmm.
like, I have an open door back here,
Yes.
and, you'll have, again, distractions. You'll have people walking by or people coming in and interrupting you,
Hmm.
or so I guess my question is interruptions. You mentioned about being at home. Maybe you've got a pet, maybe you've
Hmm.
got a child. How do you handle that?
Some of it is you just kind of have to have a little decorum with your students and be like, listen, there's occasionally going to be a human that walks past here. Um, we're mic'd. There's nothing that's going to be said that's, overheard. If you are going to do a private meeting like that, I would suggest closing the door and, creating an area that you can just, make your own. But I mean, for the most part, a lot of people realize that we are not in ideal situations right now. I mean, we're still technically in a pandemic. So some of those things are outside the norm. I mean, my dog is usually sitting next to me, but she's on the couch today for some reason. She goes between the couch and the bed that's next to my desk. But occasionally she'll try and jump up, and then she wants to look out that window and then stares right in the camera.
I love it.
And
Yes.
it's one of those like, oh no. But she's a cute dog, so it works out for her. Nobody seems to complain. But
Yeah, and I think you're
yeah.
right there. Like I know that when I've had classes in the past and I've had like my wife or, somebody, and I'll say to the students, just want to let you know that my wife might be walking behind me or something like that. And I've even sometimes used that as a tool. Lewis and I were talking earlier, about, well, here's my wife. And, we talk about marketing and, the difference between marketing to men and women. And my wife will play along in the thing, or you could even do that with your child and ask them a couple of questions, or so you can bring that little bit of creativity into it.
Right.
It can be awkward if you don't say something.
Right. And it's one of those things that I remember years ago when I was doing undergrad work, I took a course that was acting for teachers. I probably don't have the proper name for it, but it was basically an acting course for teachers to be able to have a presence, to be able to, here's how you hold yourself when you're in the class. I mean, not like you break your back after a while doing it all straight back like that, but being able to use a prop if you needed to, being able to hold the student's attention, here's how you project across the room. So some of those things can still be used in here. That's why, I have props.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's stuff laying around that, sometimes I occasionally, pretend I'm turning on the camera with my sonic screwdriver. That's, from Doctor Who. But it's the little things that, get the student's attention.
Okay.
Yeah, never turns off the camera when I want it to. But those are some of those things you can use from your background and just make it a part of it. For instance, I started the recording and started the basic stuff before you guys joined, and then used you as example of people joining during the meeting.
Exactly.
So it's just one of those transitions you can use. And as I realize I'm still screen sharing, I will share. You also have video filters, which are pretty neat. You can, put a little dog in there. So if you do
I've
need
never
something,
used that. That's kind of fun.
yeah, you could, be a talking head for a little bit. They have, I'm not sure what this one is. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of fun ones.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
it's just a little way of, if it's yeah, there's some Christmas lights or holiday
Oh
lights.
boy.
Yeah.
I actually saw my first Christmas display yesterday. And
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. It's scary.
You can ask your students to dress up for Halloween. So there's a whole bunch of things in here that, are pretty neat with that. I mean, there's
Yeah.
also oh, I forgot to turn off my mask. Hold on. I mean, you can even do your makeup in here. Yeah. Yeah, under general, you can even, there's an option. Yeah, under general, we have a whole bunch of settings here, but there's even an option somewhere in here that under video, you can have it touch up your appearance.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so there's a lot of settings in here.
Yeah, I know. Really, same here. But
Use that one.
Yeah, we could all, I don't know. I mean, we're all lovely people. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of options in here for that. There is other options. If you click, go ahead, Anthony.
No, I was going to ask you, but go ahead and finish this, but I had another question. I wanted to ask you about students and how you handle the students, but continue what you're doing here, and
Okay.
I'll finish. I'll ask that.
Yep, we only have about 3 minutes before I have to go into the next training.
Yeah,
So
that's true too. Yeah.
we'll just go through this. If you did click on the view more settings, and it will bring you to the zoom.us side, and this is where you can edit your full profile. So you can go in and you can change your picture, you can change your name that shows up, and any of these other information that you wanted. You have your personal meeting ID, you can see your account is licensed, and you can go through some of the settings there. There are some more settings in here that are specific to meetings that really you don't need to change for what we'll be doing in e-class and for those meetings, but that's just really where you are able to do that. And
So
okay,
Chuck,
yep,
here's my question for you
of
then.
course.
What advice can you give the faculty for how to handle students who, are how to handle the students, an improper use of leaving the microphone on, those kinds of questions.
So if a student has left their microphone on like that, and there's some background noise and all of that, I'm just going to share again. In the participant list, you can directly mute someone. So I just muted Lewis, and then I can ask them to unmute.
Good.
So that way you won't be able to unmute them personally, because then that becomes a security flaw and you might be eavesdropping on what they're saying. We don't want to accidentally turn it on if someone's having a conversation about medical information or anything like that.
Right, of course. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff. Likewise, if they're leave their camera off, what type of suggestions can you give them?
It's one of those things that we can't entirely force a student to turn on their camera. It's either due to maybe a diagnosis of anxiety or anything else that would prevent them. Maybe they don't have a good background to show. Maybe there's 3 kids crawling on one of the parents in the background. Maybe there's, all a multitude of things. So you're going to have to kind of use a little bit of discretion with that, because it is touch and go with some of that. And you might want to just specifically talk to students that haven't turned on their camera. I do suggest meeting one-on-one with students.
Yeah.
Even at least once or twice. If it's a fully online course, just meet with them once or twice personally. Just be like, hey, just wanted to see who you were, just wanted to talk to you, get some details. It gives you a way to kind of mix some of those things into your course too. If someone's interested in a topic, I always throw in hot topics into my course that are, or not so much hot topics, but like a common show that everybody's watching.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
good. Great
works
advice.
out.
Great advice.
Thank you. Thank you. I do have to jump into the next one.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
I'll see
you in a
everyone at
little bit.
11.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bye now.
All right, bye everyone.